let's see, this might work. So this is a this thing right here is a excuse me, a milliwatt test set, and a talk battery set, and
is this one of those mechanical milliwatts?
it's no, there's an electronic generator, but let's see. So the milliwatt is 8652.
Okay.
And then there's a battery termination at 8653. Which just gives you battery, and I believe if if I dial 8623 on that one and 8653. Hello. Yeah, so if you dial both ends of it, people used to be able to talk over milliwatt.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, and I have this this 60A controller, which will not let that happen. It'll let 1004 through, but nothing else. So if you try to talk, and I think there's a relay that's chattering there because it's hearing things that are indicators of people trying to defeat the blocker.
So when you were just dialing there, was there a reason you had to wait till it was done converting tone to pulse?
No, it's just the way my brain works. So I'm used to. I'm used to, most of the phones in here are rotary, so I'm just kind of used to doing that.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can definitely do. So, and that's done on these cards down here are Teltone pulse to tone converters.
Okay.
So each one of these cards it's between the line finder and the first selector.
And you have one for each of those?
Yeah, so I have 10 first selectors. Even so, the line group has space for 20 line finders, and I actually have 20 line finders in here. Some of them are none of the ones on this top shelf are in use. All of the make busy keys are out. The normal ones, they're when they're normal, they're hidden. When they're busied out, they stick out. I guess none of these are obviously messed up. I don't think they are, but I'm really just using these 10 positions are just storage for line finders.
Okay.
They're not wired into anything, because I don't, if I had 20 operating line finders, I would need to have 20 operating first selectors. There's they're hardwired one-to-one, and I don't have the selectors, I don't have the space, and I don't have the need. So so I just have 10. I just have 10 talk paths that work.
Okay. So is this here something the phone company use when?
This thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got that last year and haven't Haven't had a chance to look at how to use it. But I think it's got... Yeah, it's got like this big daisy chain cable that you would... and I think it plugs into... I think it plugs into line finders, but I'm not 100% sure. And somehow, I think what it would do is if you had...
would this stop the person from hanging up?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
So if somebody was complaining that somebody keeps calling them and bothering them, they would, they might be able to narrow it down to it's in this line group, but we don't, but it's really hard to catch. And I think this thing would prevent the calling party from releasing the call when they hung up, and then they could go and look and see. Okay, in the middle of the night, there's only three line finders that are up, and we can tell which numbers they're associated with, and then track down who might be making the nuisance calls. Oh, there's a manual in there. That's good.
So I know in the movies you always see them tracing calls through step equipment.
Yeah.
Is it actually easy to do here? Like if you had a situation like that?
I don't think so. There are some things that help to do that, but usually in the movies they're like looking at it, right? Aren't they? I mean, I haven't studied the movies, but usually it's like, I mean, you can certainly, on a connector, you can directly read the number that was dialed. So, like if I dial, if I dial 8622 from here. Okay, now that calls up. Now I can go to, to the line finder, and when there's only one call up, it's this connector. But so finding which one it actually is a little bit hard. But you can directly read 22 off of that.
But then how about going backwards?
Yeah, going backwards. I mean, in a non-busy office, you could say, okay, this is the selector that it's going through because it's the only one that's operated. But in a big CO, these wouldn't be next to each other. Yeah. And it doesn't. The only reason that you can associate it is because there's only one call up. Otherwise, there's nothing. There's nothing that you can tell.
So if you had two different selectors going to the two connector level, then would you actually have to jack into each selector to see if that's the right call?
If you had two different, so like if I, you mean so if I brought up a second call?
Like if you had a call going to like 23 on a different one of these connectors, and this is 22.
Yeah.
Then these would both be going to the 2 level.
So if I dial 8623 on this one, so you can tell that's 23.
So now looking at these, you wouldn't be able to tell which one is going to which.
Nope.
Okay.
And if you close your eyes and you can count the pulses, but if if you didn't, if you couldn't hear the switches pulsing, I could switch these, and you can't tell by looking at them which one goes where. Now with an external piece of equipment, you could do something similar to what the A&I does, where you were like to put a pulse or something on the sleeve, you would be able to see that. Coming back through, if I the tip ring and sleeve are available on this test jack. So if I was to insert tone on the tip and ring, you could see it, but the nuisance caller could tell also. which might not be what you want to happen.
But couldn't you just plug into each of them and just listen to see if that's a nuisance color on there?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, so you can you can put a there's in fact let me get one. Something clicking?
That's what I thought. Yeah, is this ringing?
Oh, that's 8623. So, if you're you can certainly plug in here, and I can say, so
Well,
I'm the.
oh wait, I just hear dial tone.
Oh wait, yeah. Let me do the other one. Where's the other one? So if you listen to this, I can say this is the nuisance color.
Yep, I hear
I'm
you.
really a nuisance, and then you could say, all right, well, it's coming back through the selector. Is it that one?
No, this says dial
that's
tone.
this ring. This is a nuisance caller.
Okay.
You should be able to hear that, right?
Yep, I can.
And then and then we could go back here and say, all right, so there's 2 calls up here. This is the nuisance caller. That's probably not the right one.
No, this is bring back.
Yep. This is the nuisance caller.
Yep.
And then, once you get back to here, you say, okay, well, this is selector number 2. So that's on line finder number 2. And I can tell that because of the position of the banks, the last digit of the calling number should be, I think that's a 0, which is not right.
Which phone did the nuisance caller use? Is that
I think it's this one, right?
8622?
Yeah. And what's that one? That one is.
It says 8643, 8645 for that one.
Well, let's see. Let's go. So this is the nuisance caller?
Yep.
So that doesn't really seem like that. That does not look like 22. That looks like 20.
Yeah.
It's on. Oh, maybe.
Okay, so is that one.
Oh, so, let's see.
That was the phone the nuisance caller used, right?
I thought it was this one.
Because when you were dialing just now, I heard your dial pulsing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm on your line, so.
Okay. Oh, okay. So that makes sense why it's on 0. But I thought when I was saying this is the nuisance caller, I thought I was saying it into that one. But maybe
that was just you were speaking to the call parties.
Yeah.
The call.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I called from there. Yeah, that's right. So the now that's in the real world, that wouldn't really work, because they would not associate the line finder and the connector terminals one-to-one like I did. They would spread them apart.
So how would that make a difference in terms of tracing?
Because I can sort of read the calling digit on the line finders, because I have them associated one-to-one.
Oh, I see.
But not completely, because these are. Can you hang up that other green phone back there, please? So, have you heard of bank slip on line finders? So, on selectors and connectors, this terminal right here on the first row, the first one, is the same there and there all across the way. On a line finder, they didn't do that. On a line finder, the bank is slipped. So the terminal that is on the first row, on the leftmost, on this section, is on the second row, the first position, and then it's on the third row, and then on the fourth row. So it gradually slips. It gradually slips up. And the reason they do that is because they want to minimize the amount of time it takes for the line finder to find the line. So this line group has 200 line and cutoff relays, and they're broken up into 20 groups of 10, and then corresponding to the first digits. So and then like these banks only have two sections, the top and the bottom. The line finders have three. So these are called 200-point banks, and these are called 100-point banks.
What's the third part for again?
So
is that ground or?
No, the third part is so that there can be 200. So there's tip and ring of the of 101 to 100, tip and ring of 101 to 00, and then the tips for the first 100, and the sleeves for the first 100 and the sleeves for the second 100.
Okay.
So what they wanted to do was to minimize, to the extent that's reasonable, the number of line finders that they had to have, and so they concentrated 200 lines onto a line finder instead of just 100 lines, and for each so there's these 20 plates of 10 line and cutoff relays. They go down into these group alarm relays. These group relays. So there's 10 relays under this cam for each of the 10 groups, and so a group has got 20 lines. So 00 to 09 and 100 to 109, for example. The same digits, but with either a 0 or a 100 as the first digit. And when you take a line off hook, the line relay in any of the lines on that plate are going to be in a certain group. So they have a common contact on each line relay, so that if any one of these So you can see. So this is group 9. And if I go over to the second line, that same relay operates. So any of the lines in that plate, and also if you go down 10 plates, any of the 10 lines in that group would operate that same relay. When that relay, so when when a line goes off hook and operates that relay, it also puts a ground on. Let's look up here. It's a little bit easier to see. It puts a ground on one segment of this commutator, and and then when the line finder is looking to see which of the 200 lines is requesting service, it's going to step up and say, is there a ground at that position? If there is, then I'm at the right level and I want to sweep around and look for it. If not, I'm going to step up one and I'm going to look for the right ground to tell me which of 20 lines I should search for as I rotate. Does that make sense?
Wait, so isn't this the first selector?
This is a line finder.
Oh, okay, that makes more sense.
Yep.
Okay.
So what do they call these things? Like select and search functions, I think. Like a line finder is search and search. It's searching in both directions. A selector is select and then search. So if you dial a 6, it's going to step up 6, and then it's going to start searching for an open outlet channel. So something that doesn't have a ground on the sleeve. And a connector is select and select. It just you dial one digit and it steps vertically, and then you dial the second digit and it selects around the other way. So the line finder is they wanted to minimize the amount of time that it took to find a line, and they did that by slipping the banks. So if you're in an idle office, and you have a phone whose 10 digit is a 2, it's gonna prefer that selector, and it does. If I think this is 30.
Oh, that ends in a 1.
Yeah, that's not the right.
That also ends in a 1.
Yeah, but the 10th digit is a 0, right?
Oh yeah.
So it's trying to figure out which 10th unit you're in. So it's going to the 10th switch. The 0 is switched, and we should see that in that group relay, it should be the last group relay that's operating.
Yep. I think.
Yep. So that's putting a ground on level 0 on this one. It's actually on level 9 of this one, then 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So if I have two phones that are in the 20s, the first one is gonna pick the optimal switch, and then the next one there's a chaining circuit in here, so this switch is busy, so it'll say, all right, go over to that one. And on that one, it's going to step up to the 3rd position, not the 2nd position, because the bank is slipped.
So if you didn't have it slipped, then some people would just always get slow dial tone, right?
That's right. Yeah. If you were in the in the 9x or the 0x digits, it would always take you longer for your line to get found. so your your experience would be worse. Hello. Yep. All right. Bye. Marion, so.
What is this thing you're doing?
This. It's busying out this switch. There's a problem with it.
Okay. These don't have those same little things that turn?
They don't. So I think every, all these switches have similar types of jacks on the front, and I think it's tip ring, sleeve, and ground on all of them. And these are, to be honest, these are probably newer than these. So, I'm sorry, than these. And I think they figured at some point in time, it's easier to just put one of these things in than to have a switch operated. And it's a little bit easier to see. Somebody painted the tips of these yellow so that they would stick out a little bit more, but that's not the way they came from the factory.
Yeah, I think these don't have them.
Right. What is this? This is another. Oh, this is some kind of counter gizmo. Busy Finder.
I think I saw one of those at KZSU or something like that.
Oh,
or
did
like
you?
on a different test equipment, every time one was called, it would increment a counter.
Okay,
or something
yeah.
like that. It's like, oh, the milliwatt's been called, 4,000 times or something.
Yeah. So there's lots of future projects to get things working that aren't currently hooked up. When I first got so it's doing its self-test right
Okay.
now.
How is it both idle and busy?
That's a good question. Huh. I guess that it indicates it's doing a self-test rather than being idle or busy. Let's see, what was I was going to point something out. Can't remember what it is. Oh, I just I have a couple of these that I bought from various places, and I don't actually know what it is. I want to ask Paul because I think Paul's got a CMC manual. I don't know what a PG-Matic does, but I have 3 of these things, and I have one or more ghost problems. So it's very similar to that, except that the busy or the motor start lead will be asserted by something, but it's not that, and that's the only thing that is kind of it's normal that it does that thing, and I understand why it does it, and if it really bothered me, I could take the power off that thing, or I could do something else. But it doesn't bother me that much. But there's something else that is there's some other ghost floating around where it'll go offline. It seems like it seems like a phone line went off hook because the line finders operate. But it happens and then it drops, and I can't, I can't get over to the line finder quickly enough to see what happens. So I modified this thing so that it is it's a ground pulse detector and latcher. So this just goes into 48 volts and ground, and if a ground goes on a lead, it latches up a relay and lights that light, and it stays that way. So I just touch the ground, and so now I can go and hang this on. If I think it's like, for example, I can go on each of the 10 group relays and see, okay, which group is it, and that limits it down to 20 lines. And then I could go to to each of the 20 line relays and find something that gets grounded when they get operated. And it'll take a while, but it's better than saying I can't figure out what it is. And
so sort of like tracing a call, like
yeah, it's just catching a ground in the act. But it's because it always seems to happen when I'm on conference calls, and then it will do it like 8 times, and then it shuts off, shuts off. And I have lots of things. If you look over, here, this is where all the terminals from the line and cutoff relays come out.
Okay.
So there's 100 tip ring and sleeves for the first hundreds, and 100 tip ring and sleeves for the second 100. And there's various terminal blocks hanging out here exposed, and there's various cords with metal tips that are hanging around. I'm pretty confident that I have slid these things out of the way, and that they're not actually what's causing this phantom line to go off hook.
Not on a regular basis, probably.
Yeah, but I can't find it, or I haven't found it, I should say.
So these are all your lines then, right?
Yes.
And then one side goes to the line and cutoff relays, and the other goes to the MDF over there.
Yeah, it's not done the way really that it's supposed to be done, and I didn't do the 200 groups the same. So the first 100 group, there's they call this they call this cable that has tips, rings, and sleeves in it trips, for triples instead of pairs, because you need 3 wires to make it work. So so you need either a piece of 100 trips, 300 wires, so this pretty big cable, so that you can keep it all kind of nice and neat together, or you need to run multiple smaller cables if that's all you have. So when I was laying this out, I don't have an infinite supply of various kinds of cables. So one of the things that I had to work into how I was going to lay this out is, all right, how much 100 trip cable do I have, and how long are the pieces, and if I want to put the MDF back in that corner and the line group back in this corner, that's like the longest possible path in here. So should I rearrange everything? At the end of the day, what I did was I decided I'm gonna take the 100 tip rings and sleeves from the first 100 lines and run those over to the first connector bank, and just cut them down one for one, and then run another piece with those same 100 lines over to the MDF. So, but on the second one, this cable, wherever it is, this cable here, it goes all the way over to the MDF, and it's not automatically cross-connected to all of the connectors. So if you look over, let's go over to the MDF for a second. If you look at the by the way, I say what if you look at this, like it's obvious that you'll see it, and you know, that's not necessarily true. But this is the on the left side of this block are the first 100 lines, and so you know they go from the line group over to the connector shelf, and then it's just paralleled over to here. So the wires that are coming off of here are mostly are pairs. So you know on this block there's column 1 is are tips, column 2 are rings, column 3 are sleeves. And if you look at these, you should be able to see that the on the top 100 terminals, the sleeves just have a single plastic covered wire that goes over to the ANI. If you look down on the second 100, there's actually a cloth sleeve that goes over to the connector, because the line finder and the connector tip ring and sleeves need to be tied together. Mm-hmm. And on the first 100 lines, they're numerically equal. So if I take an 8600 numbered phone, which is the first hundreds group, mm-hmm. if I take that phone off the hook, I can tell you in advance which group relay is going to operate, because it's hard, because it's hardwired. Mm-hmm. And then on an idle system, I can tell you which line finder is going to try to find it first. Mm-hmm. On the second ones, that's not true. There's no association between the connector terminal 8901 and which line circuit that is in the second 100 lines. It could be line 1, it could be line 99, it could be anything in the middle. Mm-hmm. And in general, I sort of wish I had written them down as I was doing them. I didn't. And it doesn't, it doesn't make that much of a difference usually. Every once in a while, when you're trying to find a problem, it's like, wish I had written all that stuff down. Because now I just have to go on a hunt.
So then what's the relation between the numbers here? Because like most of your phone numbers seem to start with 8, right?
Yes.
And then they start with 1, 2.
Yeah. So these are pair numbers.
Okay.
As opposed to phone numbers. Mm-hmm. So I have a little chart someplace that says the way that you're supposed to read this is, since this sticker is more to the left, 1001 is mm-hmm. on the left side and 1501 is on the right side. Mm-hmm. So 1001 to 1100 are the first 100 terminals. And I have a little chart that says that first 100 pair go to the first 100 lines in the line group. Mm-hmm.
So these are associated more with jacks then, as opposed
not with jacks, just with if you look at the way that an MDF in a large building was put together. Mm-hmm. They'll have just rows and rows and rows of terminals, and you have to have some locally significant numbering plan. So usually they just call them like house pair numbers, and you can start at mm-hmm. you can start at whatever number you want to. I chose to start at 1000 instead of at 1. Not for any good reason, I just did. Mm-hmm. And then it's completely locally significant. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't have anything to do with any of the numbering of the dialing plan or anything else. Mm-hmm. It just relates to cables.
But is there a mapping of some sort, like from one of these to that particular jack, for example?
There is. So I have a notebook upstairs that, for example, let me go get it because it's probably easier to give you an example than. What are you barking at, Bubba? Up. Get off. Bubba. Don't jump. Don't jump. Don't jump.
Are they usually down here?
No. I usually keep the gate closed, but let me find an example.
Is this a teletype or just a typewriter?
It's a teletype.
Okay, and it's hooked up?
It is. I would let's see if there's a Raspberry Pi on the side that if you push that button, it should make that light start to blink like that, which it's doing, and then it should fire up the motor and say, "Welcome to the Lancaster 2019 Switchers Tour." But it shouldn't take that long. So these things operated, I think, like 45.4 bits per second or something.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And it's Bordeaux. So I don't think anybody makes UARTs or USARTs that go down that low anymore. So the Raspberry Pi needs to synthesize, spit bang out 45 bits per second. So what I really want to do is have it. It's actually you're familiar with Raspberry Pis? So it's really a Pi W. So it's got a wireless connection. So I really wanted to go out and get the weather forecast every morning, and then just print the weather forecast out in every morning, so I can come down and on the way to work I can rip off the weather report. But I got distracted and stopped at this.
Do you have another teletype with which it could communicate, or just this one?
I just have one. Paul Wills has got several, and we've talked about we've talked about setting it up so we could send teletype messages back and forth.
That would be cool if you did it during the show.
Yeah,
Like some people here and some people
we're on
there.
the way. Yeah.
And there's a video of somebody on YouTube. He took one of these online and was surfing the web with a teletype.
Oh, really?
That was pretty cool.
When I was in high school so this was like 73 to 76, we had a model 33, the more plasticky case teletype that operated at 110 bits per second, and we had a dial-up. It had acoustic couplers, so we could dial up Westchester University's time-sharing computer. And the rule was that the seniors got first access, and then the juniors, and then the sophomores. And I was, when this first came out, I was a sophomore, and there's all these seniors that wanted to play this Star Trek game, and they were idiots. There was like you could hit one key, and it would print out an 8.5 by 11 map of the universe. But it's like star. So it took like 6 minutes to print out the map, and then they would move one place and print another one out. It's like, dude, why are you doing that? Just write with your pencil where you moved it. It's nothing else is moving except what you're telling it to move. All you're doing is wasting time and paper.
Yeah.
But it was. I remembered, when I first. It's like, how does it do it that? How does it work that fast? But here, here's an example of like how I wire things up. So we saw that red strobe that goes off when the fuse blows. So it's showing that there's a piece of red, green, yellow, black quad cable, and the red and the black are hooked up to that, and the yellow and green are stored. If we go over here, we should see that it should say red and black. Yeah, it does. Sorry, red and black are used, which is right, and I guess that meter's in the way. But yellow and green, I can see it, but there you go. Yellow and green are just stored on that cable, and then it goes over to and it's wired into 2104 tip and ring, and 21. I'm sorry, the four wires are wired into 2104 tip ring and sleeve and 2105 tip. So some of this I know where that is, but here. So 2104 is 2101, 2, 3, 4. So this is this is where the other end of that cable is, right here. And then like these 2100 series numbers exist in a couple of different places because they're kind of typically like alarms and things like that. So I don't have a giant book with all these tables of all the cross connects, but I kind of make these functional diagrams up in various books, and then if I need to figure out what goes to what, can't lose this book. But
yeah. So you see all the dates here are different. Does that mean they all came from different switches originally?
From different offices, or even they could come from the same office but over different time frames, because they might have, like a line group could have 20 line finders, but in a smaller office when they're starting off there might not be enough traffic to do that, so they wouldn't be fully equipped. And Steve Flocky, who lives outside Cleveland and worked for Ohio Bell for decades, has told me a couple times when they started doing, I guess he was involved a lot in trunking between different offices, and he would say, you know, there were these, there were accounting traffic engineers, and there were engineering traffic engineers. And the bean counter traffic engineers would say, hey, you know, we've got this trunk group between Cleveland and Akron, and we've got 8 trunks and we only need 6. So we want you to, you know, remove the equipment at both ends and remove all the cross connects. And Steve said, you know, and then we would get on the phone with them and say, look, we've done this 4 times for you. You know, we take them out, and then 6 months later, you're going to realize, hey, there's not just busy hours, there's busy months and busy busy weeks. It costs money to take this stuff out and put it back in again. And when we deinstall a trunk, it doesn't save any money. We just remove the equipment, and sometimes we don't remove it. Sometimes we just take it out of service. And it impacts revenue because people can't make a call and maybe they won't try it again. And it certainly impacts revenue, or I'm sorry, expenses, because we've got people that are installing and deinstalling stuff that, you know, only because you bean counters want something to be within this band of acceptability.
So how did you wire all this stuff around your entire basement up? Like, is the wiring in the walls? How did you do that?
So on most of these, I love this slat wall stuff. There's I'm not going to do it, but you know, I can pick that whole thing up and pull it off and remove it. And I think if we look at, so I think here. There's modular. There's 2 double modular boxes back here, and then there's cables that wire each of the phones to those jacks, and then, you know, these are just Cat5 cables that I can unplug. I can unplug 4 cables, take that whole thing off the wall, and change it from, you know, from oak stain to blue paint if I wanted to, and then hang it back up again. And then these cables go down to this block. There's a similar one down at that end and back in that corner. And so, you know, this is where these individual 4-pair or 4 phone line connections come in, and then I just cross connect them over to that block over there, and see where it says like 2651 to 2675. Maybe I can see it, but maybe you can't because that board's in the way.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, that goes back onto the MDF. And then I just run a jumper cable up to the connector terminal that I want to hook it up to.
Okay. So you use Cat5, you said, instead of like Cat3 or something?
I use Cat5 because I had a box of Cat5 cable.
So does that mean then you have multiple phone lines going over one Cat5?
No. So there's 4 pairs in here, and I use 1 pair per line.
Okay.
You know, if I had, and I think I wanted white cable because the wall's white, just hides, you know, it just hides it a little bit better.
But I see only 5 cables here. There's like 10 on this wall, so.
So there's 4 phone lines in each one of these things, right? So there's 16 lines that come up here, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and this is a dual 13, 14. So there's 1 pair. There's 1 extra pair in there.
Okay. So you are using multiple pairs in each cable then?
Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. I use all 4 pairs in a Cat5 cable.
Okay.
One for each line.
So it's probably a lot more efficient than just using one Cat3 for every single
Oh yeah,
phone then.
yeah. Because it can get, you know, the wiring is for me. It's hard to figure out what the right way to do things is. You know, if you have, like, most of these cables are the right length, so there's not big coils of extra cable, which makes it look neat. Makes it hard to move a cable 6 inches one way or the other if you want to. You know, if you want, I mean, I don't think I could slide that. Well, I could. I could move that thing out of the way and slide it down, but the cables probably wouldn't reach. I would have, you know, sometimes, like, something that looks simple becomes a little bit more difficult, because if you made the decision to not have a lot of excess cable, then if you need it to be longer, you need to run a new cable, or you need to make a new, you know, a new Cat5 jumper in this case. But that seemed like, yeah, that seemed like a pretty good approach to me, to have, you know, 4 pair modulars on each side, and then it's, you know, it's pretty easy to, you know, to either buy, you know, buy a patch cable if you want to, or make, you know, I make my own, but they're easy to get, and they're easy to make.
I see these are all hardwired phones here, I think. So you usually group similar types of connections together to make that easier to deal with? Or is that just, like, a matter of style here?
I think it's just a matter of style.
Okay. And then you just have a phone jack behind each phone going over there?
No, on the wall phones, I, like, you know, at some point in time, you know, when wall phones first came out, they were mounted on the wall. At some point in time, they started putting those, you know, those kitchen wall receptacles with the little buttons that a phone would slide down and lock on. You've seen those, right?
Yeah. They even have courtesy phones on campus like that.
Yeah. I think. I don't know. I know I have one around here someplace, but, you know, most of these didn't have those adapters on them, and you know, I didn't really think it was that important to change the, you know, to change the position of the blue one and the pink one. So, you know, this stuff is just hardwired. You know, if I, at some point in time, if I came across a giant box of the modular adapters that go in the phones and modular jacks, you know, I might go back and redo these things so you could move them around, but probably not.
Yeah.
So it's you know, I mean, I tend to you know, I tend to gravitate more towards the I was trying to think of the guy from MIT that coined this term with the internet, loose consensus in running code. What's that guy's name? David somebody at MIT. You read internet RFCs?
Not really. I've come across a few, but
okay. One of the early guys, when they were, you know, like, I think before they had even gotten to TCP, there was, like, you know, it was a blank sheet of paper. You could do anything you wanted to. How big are the numbers going to be, you know? And there was a lot of discussions, because it's like, you know, if we have standards, it'll be adopted more quickly, and it will be more universal, and, you know, lots of good things. But you know, getting people to agree on standards is hard. So he coined this term, you know, loose consensus in running code beats the perfect design, and something that you never finish. And I'm more of a, you know, it's like you know, I want to get this. I want to get all of these Stromberg Carlson wall phones up this weekend. So,
Oh, these are Stromberg Carlsons?
yes,
Oh, I see. The dials kind of look like Western Electric. So.
yeah, yeah. I don't really have many Western wall phones. And I'm because I'm not really a big fan of the 554. Yeah, it's really big.
You mean this kind or this
Yeah,
kind?
this kind.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, so these mini ones just look they look a lot neater to me. And obviously you can fit more of them in 8 feet of wall than the Western versions. And I tend to. I mean, I always lived in Bell System towns and cities. So I mean, I never saw a Stromberg Carlson phone until I started collecting them. And same with the AEs. Never saw those. I just think that I think they're pretty cool looking phones.
Yeah.
But I don't have a lot of older stuff. You know, like 500 phones is what I remember as a kid. So, I mean, I have a wood phone, I have a candlestick someplace, and I've started getting a couple of older things just as kind of representative of what was there before. But I think this is I mean I love these old clickety clack dials.
Yeah.
But like
The handset.
the handsets that
It's
like
not as
you try to cut a hole in your shoulder if you. I mean I can't actually balance it, so it doesn't even work. But they're like really uncomfortable.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I mostly prefer like the 500s, 554s, that type of style.
And what's really interesting is a lot of the European stuff is really crappy looking.
Yeah.
I mean I like that color, but I mean the dial is like pretty cheesy.
These also look kind of funny.
Yeah, these I like. These are Italian. These actually have a somewhat dodgy hook switch. So I have them disconnected because that was one of my previous ghosts. It's like, and I think one time I was carrying something past here and I dropped it and it was enough to cause a little vibration. It's like, oh, maybe that's part of the problem.
Is this always buzzing like this?
It is when it's powered on. So usually you may have noticed I flip that switch on. Usually I keep this stuff powered off because it just sits there and generates power or consumes power.
Does this not work? Is that why it's down there?
Yes, that's. I'm not sure what it's supposed to interface to.
It's not just a 1A2 phone?
It's not.
I think it's a Centrex though.
It does, yeah. But a lot of these consoles are very, very different, and some of them are quite strange. But I like them. This is I really like this. It's just like a giant busy lamp field and direct station select. So I think I'm gonna interface that to my crossbar one of these years. But
so is that just so like an attendant could look at it and see if somebody's busy?
Yeah,
just very
exactly.
easily?
Yep. Or they can select. Yeah, they could like select, line 04, and I guess it would, it would latch something, and then they could cut it through and release. So you could answer a CO line and directly select a station without having to dial the digit. This console is really strange. When I got it, these keys did not have any lamps in them, and they didn't have the more importantly, they didn't have the contact fingers in the side, so you could put a lamp in them.
That's weird.
So all it is a giant set of buttons with no kind of indication, and then these keys over here are all non-latching. They have lamps, but it's like
they don't stay in.
They don't stay in.
So how do you put a call-on holder or something?
Well, it's not for placing calls. It's more of, I think, like some kind of a maintenance panel for some piece of equipment, so that you could, I don't know, like run tests or something. But it seems like, man, that seems like a lot. It seems like a lot of work to make something that just has a bunch of push buttons on it.
Are the ones underneath just regular 1A2 phones?
I think so. I think, yeah, that's just a 30-button call director and an 18-button call director.
Is that a 5304 or something? Or is that just a 500 set?
That's an Oxford Gray 500 set.
Okay.
Here's a 5302.
Okay, yeah, that does look different.
Yeah, they're kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm struggling with what the name of this thing is.
Are these used for data?
No. So this is kind of a it's kind of a prepackaged. So Oxford Gray is one of the really rare colors.
Mm-hmm.
So I have the main shell, I have the transmitter cap.
Mm-hmm.
I'm missing the receiver cap, the receiver, and the dial. But so one of my long-term, keep my eyes out for it.
Okay.
But this is going to drive me crazy. Maybe it's written on the. Well, so this is kind of a prepackaged 1A2 system. So there is there are master stations, and this is a master station. So it has an AC power plug, and an Amphenol. And what you could do is you could plug a satellite station like the one that's down there to the right of the consoles, on one shelf down.
Mm-hmm.
You could just plug the Amphenols together, and then have a 1A2 system with no central equipment.
Oh, that's so cool.
So there's I think there's two KTU cards built into this, so you could have two master stations for a total of 4 lines, and then as long as you could get Amphenol. They make these things called CPCs, connector plug connector, so you can plug one line cord in and plug 2 phones in, so you can kind of multiply the number of phones without doing actual wiring. So it was a way to for a small business to have a much less expensive installation, because it's there's no mounting of central equipment, there's no cutting down cables. It's going to drive me crazy. I can't think of what these things are called. It will come to me eventually. One of the things that XY stuff made by Stromberg was very popular in more rural areas, and there were a lot more party lines. So this is a test box that has 33 cycle ringer, 66 or 50, 66, 25, 16, and I have a multi-frequency ring generator that creates those frequencies, and one of these days I'll get that set up so that there's a party line where depending on what number you ring, it will send a different frequency down the line and only ring one of the bells, which is kind of cool. Not exactly sure how I'm going to display it, because if you have all the phones next to each other, it's going to be hard to tell which one is ringing, and the neon lamp trick isn't going to work, because I think the neon lamp will light with any frequency. So, but we'll figure that out sometime.
Do you use the TTYs there for anything?
No. Somebody had put a ad in on the TCI list that said, "I have a couple of these. If you want any, let me know." I'm like, I should have 2 of those. So they work.
Would you be able to communicate with the teletype then with these?
No.
No?
Because the teletype is all done with 20 milliamp current loop, and and this uses modem frequencies.
Oh yeah, that's right. Okay. So you need a modem for the teletype then, basically.
So the current loop stuff was really just it was just there wasn't a modem. It operated slowly enough that you could do those transitions over pretty long local loops, and go ahead. I learned. And SK, I think SK is some kind of query, like can I talk or something like that. I think one time I took 2 500 sets and did the acoustic couplers and had a conversation between the two. Just seemed like something that I should have a pair of. Let's see. All right, so that's a pretty good tour. If you want to walk around and play with stuff, that's you can do that. And I don't know if you do.
Okay. Oh yeah, that would be great.
Okay. And then maybe that'll prompt questions.